All right, let's just jump right in. The defenseless defense. I know, it sounds like a complete contradiction, doesn't it? Like something you'd hear in an old kung fu movie. But what if I told you that the best way to be truly powerful, especially in a world full of conflict and manipulation, isn't to build thicker walls, but to actually take all your armor off?
So yeah, that's the big question we're going to unpack here. How is it possible that being completely undefended could actually be your greatest strength? Well, believe it or not, the answer starts a long, long time ago. Over 2,500 years ago, actually, with an idea that has pretty much shaped the world ever since.
So, to get to the bottom of this, we're not starting in a modern lab or a university. We're going back to the ancient world, to a temple dedicated to the Greek god Apollo, because it's here that a simple phrase was carved, a phrase that would become a cornerstone for so much of Western thought. I want you to just picture it for a second. You're walking into this incredibly sacred place, and you see these inscriptions. Among them, one in particular stands out. It wasn't some kind of cryptic prophecy or a dire warning. It was just a simple command aimed directly at every single person who entered. Know thyself. That's it. Just 2 words. So simple, so direct, and yet, wow, so incredibly profound and challenging, right? This wasn't just some friendly advice. It was considered the absolute key to living a good, meaningful life. And there was one philosopher who took this command and basically built his entire life around it. And yeah, you guessed it, Socrates. For him, know thyself wasn't about, finding your favorite color or your spirit animal. It was about relentless, rigorous self-examination. He truly believed that if you weren't doing that constant, honest, inward look, life itself just wasn't worth it. But what is this self we're supposed to be getting to know? Well, as it turns out, that's been a moving target for centuries. You're about to see just how much this idea has evolved. The meaning of know thyself has really been a battleground of ideas, changing right along with our whole understanding of what it even means to be a person. Okay, check out this journey. It starts way back with Heraclitus, who saw it as a call for humility. Know your place, know you're mortal. But then Plato comes along and just completely flips it, turning the focus inward to this idea of an immortal soul. Then, centuries later, St. Augustine reframes it again through a spiritual lens, knowing your soul's connection to God. And then you just fast forward to the 1900s, and you've got psychoanalysis taking that exact same phrase and applying it to the deep, hidden world of our unconscious minds. The question stays the same, but the answer just keeps evolving. So if humanity's greatest thinkers have been wrestling with this for thousands of years, why is it still so ridiculously hard for us, today? Well, modern science actually has a pretty good clue. And it's because a lot of us are walking around in what you could call an inner split state. And this, right here, is absolutely crucial to understand. Things like trauma and just long-term chronic stress can literally break us in two internally. Your body's survival programming goes into overdrive, reacting to everything as a threat, while the thinking, meaning-making part of your brain kind of checks out or gets totally overwhelmed. What you feel in your body becomes disconnected from what you think. This isn't some poetic metaphor, it's a real neurobiological thing. And you can't really know thyself when thyself is at war. Centuries before we had any kind of brain scanning technology, St. Augustine was already onto this. He saw this fragmentation. And his solution was pretty radical for his time: turn inward. He argued that truth and wholeness, they're not out there in the world. They're found by coming back to the inmost part of who we are. He saw people constantly looking for fixes on the outside when the real problem was inside. And this is just a brilliant connection between that ancient wisdom and our modern struggles. What Augustine called disordered love, this desperate search to fill an inner void with external things like people or status or substances, we have a name for that today. We call it addiction. It's really the ultimate symptom of an inner self that's been split apart and is just scrambling to find a sense of wholeness anywhere it can. Okay, so if the problem is this inner split, then the solution has to be coherence, right? It's about bringing the pieces back together. And this is where modern science gives us a tangible roadmap for forging that unified, whole, regulated self. Okay, this is pretty wild. We are not just isolated sacks of skin and bones. Our hearts and our brains are constantly generating these measurable electromagnetic fields that actually extend out into the space around us. The heart's field is incredibly powerful. You can measure it several feet away from the body, and its pattern changes completely depending on what you're feeling. We are literally broadcasting our inner state, our coherence or our chaos, to the world. So how do we get there? Well, it's a process.
First, you have to heal that inner split, reconnecting what your body feels with your emotions and your thoughts. As you do that, you build what's called heart-brain coherence, where all your internal systems literally start to sync up. And now, here's the payoff. Once your system is tuned like this, it becomes this incredibly sensitive detector for anything that's not coherent, anything that's off, a false narrative, a subtle manipulation, a lie someone tells you. It creates this jarring, dissonant feeling. The lie just can't take hold because your system immediately flags it as noise.
A fantastic real-world example of this is in the ADHD brain. That's a brain with traits of both autism and ADHD. Neurologically, it can have these really interesting patterns where some parts of the brain are way overconnected and other parts are underconnected. Now, this isn't a defect, it's just a different wiring pattern that often leads to that very real feeling of being in a split state, like you're being pulled in a million directions at once. The healing journey here is all about integration, creating more balanced and flexible coherence. And what's amazing is that a healed, coherent ADHD system can become exceptionally good at detecting and just dismantling the dissonant false narratives in the world around it, often with incredible ease. And all of this brings us right back to where we started. After you do the work, the self-knowing, the healing of the split, the building of coherence, something new emerges, a whole new way of being in the world. This is where your true spirit really shows up. This is the defenseless defense. Just look at the difference here. When we feel threatened, that split, dysregulated self immediately defaults to defensiveness. We attack back, we deny things, we make excuses. All of it is designed to protect a very fragile ego. But a coherent self, it can engage non-defensively. It can actually listen, even in a conflict. It can own its own experience and speak its truth with clarity, but without attack. And here it is. This is the heart of it all. The defenseless defense isn't about being weak or passive. It's about being so internally stable, so regulated in your own nervous system that you just don't need the armor anymore. Your safety doesn't come from your walls. Your protection is your clarity. It's the unshakable conviction that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what is true and being able to state it calmly. And that's how it works. In this state, your entire being becomes like a tuning fork for truth. Someone can spin the most convincing, logical-sounding argument, but if it's based on a lie, you will feel it. It will land in your body as a kind of static, a dissonance. It just feels viscerally wrong, because your whole system is now tuned to the frequency of what's real. And this is the beautiful paradox, isn't it? We spend so much of our lives and so much energy defending this fragile, constructed idea of who we are, our ego. But when you finally let go of that, when you become defenseless in that way, you free up all that energy to defend what actually matters, your values, your truth, your integrity. You become this clear, powerful, and deeply reliable force for good. So I'll leave you with this to think about. If you could fully step into that state of clear, undefended coherence, what's the very first lie, either a lie you tell yourself or one that the world tells you, that you would simply see through and dismantle? What truth would become perfectly clear?